Last week, we began the conversation about why we need to split our nitrogen applications up. Not just because of government regulations across various states, but also because of the environmental impact and the ability to improve crop yield when we do so. So, it's only logical now that we begin to talk about some of the ways that we have the ability to do it. It's unfair of me to ask you to split nitrogen applications up without giving you new ways or different ways to be able to do that in your operation. So over the next few weeks, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And this week, we're gonna start at the beginning of the growing season with the planter. I'm Keith Byerly, Precision Ag Manager at Central Valley Ag, and this is your agronomy focus video that corresponds with my article on the CVA website. Now, before any of you jump on my case about saying the planter is the beginning, let's back up a step. I understand that most, if not all of you, apply some nitrogen pre-emerge out there, whether it's pre-plant or immediately after the planter's gone across the field. You're splitting that nitrogen up and you're putting on some as a weed and feed, or you've knifed some into the ground in the spring or fall. You've done various things to get nitrogen out there in the system. That's an important part of the system, and I'm not gonna challenge that right now. My only ask is that if you're putting that on, you're using a nitrogen inhibitor to help make sure it's there later in the season. But as we look at the planter, I think it's important to look back in history and where we've been. 15 to 20 years ago, it was quite common for us to be putting on 15 to 20 gallons of starter fertilizer with our planter. And it made sense back then. Planters were smaller. 16 rows was kind of the big planter out there, and when you had a 1.5 bushel box on that planter, that meant that one fill of seed was about 1,000 gallons of fertilizer. You could carry that on your tractor and still have enough horsepower to handle those requirements. But as planters got bigger, as we went to central fill with the ability to haul more seed and all of that, the horsepower requirements went way up to handle that. Those knives, those coulters, all of that iron on the planter was not only expensive, but it took a lot of requirements to get through it. So we abandoned those systems to jump ship and to start applying our starter fertilizers either in furrow or on the surface. Unfortunately though, when we talk about nitrogen, both of those are a bad option. Putting the nitrogen directly on the seed's not gonna work, and applying nitrogen directly to the surface like that gives us opportunity to lose some of our nitrogen to volatilization. So, as things have evolved, we've seen planter attachments come. The idea of putting nitrogen on the planter is nothing new, but it's also not for everybody. We still had rolling wheels, we still had those horsepower requirements out there. Well, some of the new application systems from companies like Precision Planting and 360 Yield Center make this application easier. In the case of Conceals and Bandits, they both do the same thing, but they do it quite differently. Conceal from Precision Planting splits our gauge wheel and knives our nitrogen in right there with a very low profile system that takes very little horsepower. In the case of this unit that I'm holding right here, the Bandit from 360 Yield Center, we've got 2 rolling wheels and a small firmer in here that apply that nitrogen down in the bottom of that furrow. So our nitrogen's safe, it's out of the way from volatilization, it gets covered up by the closing wheels and the drag chains, and we know that we're not gonna lose it to volatilization. So, when we talk about splitting up nitrogen, I'm gonna say that it's not for everybody on the planter. I realize the size of your planter, the configuration of tanks, our ability horsepower-wise to do it may not work for your operation. But I think it's something to at least take into consideration. If we can get 5 to 10 gallons of nitrogen on with that planter and help us get that crop off to a good start with the nitrogen where it needs to be, but without having to add a lot of weight to the tractor with tanks or a lot of gallons or refill time, it may be one piece in that step for those of you that have to split your nitrogen. And even if you don't, it may be an important piece in helping you make better input decisions that help drive yield.